Welcome to Silent Payback, the channel where silence carries more power than words ever could. Here, we explore psychological revenge, subtle dominance, and real-life stories where the underestimated turn patience, observation, and calm into unstoppable power. Every story is faceless, cinematic, and suspenseful, designed to immerse you in moments where quiet planning triumphs over arrogance, mockery, and underestimation. In today's story, you'll see how one quiet, unnoticed individual navigates betrayal, manipulates the environment without confrontation, and transforms patience into the ultimate weapon. Watch closely, because every glance, every gesture, and every seemingly insignificant moment matters. This channel isn't just about revenge, it's about strategy, control, and the art of achieving silent victories that leave an unforgettable mark. If you've ever been mocked, ignored, or underestimated, you'll understand that the quietest observer is often the most dangerous. Subscribe and turn on notifications to witness more stories where restraint beats impulsiveness, strategy triumphs over arrogance, and silence speaks louder than any shout. They thought my silence was weakness, a harmless pause in their loud, chaotic world. Every laugh, every snicker, every subtle insult was fuel, not for anger, but for strategy. I did not argue, I did not retaliate, and I did not expose my plan. Instead, I observed. Every careless word, every smug gesture, every false sense of superiority was catalogued and stored. I watched routines, alliances, habits, and vulnerabilities unfold like an intricate map. My silence was not emptiness, it was a shield, a weapon, and a stage upon which I would orchestrate consequences they could not anticipate. While they mocked my quiet demeanor, I was building the foundation of their undoing. Months of observation revealed weaknesses invisible to them. Each small arrogance-filled gesture, every overlooked opportunity, every moment of overconfidence became a critical element in a plan they would never see coming. Their underestimation of the quiet observer allowed me to act invisibly, yet with precision. What they believed to be inaction was actually the most deliberate strategy. And in that silent patience, I found not weakness, but the ultimate power, one that would turn laughter into regret and mockery into lessons learned too late. Days became weeks, weeks became months, and their arrogance only grew. They believed that silence was submission, that calm observation was passivity. Every confident smile, every careless boast, every interaction they took for granted became a thread in the web I silently wove around them. I intervened subtly, misplaced documents, overlooked details, quiet suggestions left untraceable, but all actions led to a single outcome, their eventual downfall. While they celebrated imagined victories, I quietly shaped their world, turning small missteps into cascading consequences. Each detail was deliberate, each day a step closer to the inevitable climax. Patience was not idle, it was active, calculated, and precise. Silence allowed me to see what impulsiveness could not reveal, the fragility beneath their arrogance, the gaps in their strategy, the hidden opportunities that only a careful observer could exploit. With every passing day, my influence grew invisible yet unstoppable, and the quiet power I wielded became the unseen architect of events. They were blind to the storm silently gathering, unaware that the observer they mocked was already turning their confidence into vulnerability. The first cracks began subtly. Opportunities slipped at critical moments, alliances faltered, and their confidence wavered without explanation. I never intervened openly, my influence was invisible yet absolute. Every misstep, every poorly timed decision, every misplaced trust contributed to the domino effect I had orchestrated with months of patient observation. They assumed failure was coincidence, never realizing that the quiet presence they had mocked had guided each outcome. My strategy relied on timing, calculation, and restraint. Silence became my instrument, shaping reality without confrontation, altering perceptions without detection, and guiding consequences without exposure. Each subtle disruption reinforced the inevitable outcome. The very individuals who laughed at me had no idea that their arrogance had already been turned into a tool for their undoing. Every careless glance, every minor mistake, every underestimated moment became a brick in the wall of consequences that would ultimately surround them. As weeks turned into months, the subtle influence of my silence became more apparent. Friends hesitated, colleagues questioned decisions, and hesitation replaced once bold confidence. I remained invisible, but every small disruption worked in my favor. Each unnoticed error, each minor consequence, and every ripple in their daily actions was a calculated step toward the inevitable climax. Silence had transformed into influence, patience into power, and observation into a weapon stronger than confrontation. They could not trace the source of these failures because the architect of their downfall remained unseen. I had become the quiet strategist, the invisible force subtly reshaping their reality. Each domino fell as designed, each minor shift compounded into major consequences, and their world slowly unraveled while they remained oblivious. The underestimated observer had become the ultimate orchestrator. Then came the turning point, the precise moment when months of silent planning converged. They revealed secrets in misplaced trust, misjudged allies, and exposed weaknesses I had already catalogued. Every action compounded naturally, aligning perfectly with my strategy. I remained invisible, allowing their own arrogance and errors to dictate the unfolding consequences. The power of observation, patience, and subtle manipulation had culminated into an unstoppable force. They assumed chaos was coincidence, never suspecting that their underestimated quiet observer had orchestrated each domino. Every subtle intervention, every unnoticed adjustment, every moment of calculated patience had guided them here. The storm of silent payback had arrived, invisible yet inevitable. Finally, the decisive moment arrived. Their confidence collapsed, trust eroded, and alliances fractured. I remained unseen, calm and unshaken, while the consequences of months of calculated patience revealed themselves. Every subtle influence, every unnoticed disruption, and every observation executed with precision culminated perfectly. They were left confused, powerless, and astonished at how quickly their world unraveled. The quiet observer they had mocked now held the invisible reins of power. Silent payback had achieved its purpose without confrontation, without spectacle, and without detection. Patience had triumphed, strategy had succeeded, and silence had spoken louder than any shout ever could. In the aftermath, the force of underestimated silence became undeniable. Those who had laughed, mocked, and ignored me were humbled, cautious, and forever reminded of the power of patience and subtle influence. I remained invisible, yet my control over outcomes was absolute. Every consequence, every reaction, and every hesitation they experienced was a result of the careful, deliberate strategy executed quietly over months. Silence had become the ultimate instrument of power, patience the ultimate weapon, and observation the ultimate guide. The lesson was clear: underestimate the quiet observer, and you will face consequences you never anticipated. Weeks later, calm had returned, but the effects of silent payback lingered. Confidence was tempered, trust was scrutinized, and relationships subtly restructured. I had remained quiet, underestimated, and invisible, yet every outcome had aligned with my strategy. The quiet observer had proven to be the most formidable presence, demonstrating that patience, strategy, and calculated restraint are far more effective than impulsive action or loud confrontation. Those who underestimated me now understood that silence carries weight, observation is power, and subtle influence can leave permanent marks on those who ignore it. And as I moved forward, I understood the ultimate truth: silence is strength, patience is strategy, and observation is power. Revenge does not require confrontation, shouting, or violence. It requires calculated timing, precise influence, and unwavering restraint. I had remained quiet, underestimated, and invisible, yet in that quiet, I held complete control. Silent Payback had spoken louder than words ever could, leaving a lasting mark on those who mocked me and teaching an indelible lesson in patience, strategy, and calculated influence. The underestimated, unnoticed, and silent observer had proven that restraint can be more powerful than aggression, subtlety more effective than force, and patience the ultimate weapon of all.